From the marbled halls of power to the hard-scrabbled streets across the nation, I'm Tom Lobianco. I've been working the beat for decades to bring you the story. On today's show, we go deep into Old Dominion, the Commonwealth of Virginia, for the biggest battle shaping the future of our nation, the future of American democracy. It's not the race you might expect. And there has been a major scandal down south recently. We're going to be having on the guy who has the dirt and the info on all of this in just a few minutes. Reminder that if you're catching us here live on Substack and on YouTube at noon, you can drop in your comments. We'll look for those. If you're catching us on the Encore at Political Voices Network at 8 p.m., make sure to just drop your comments in over there down in the comments section. I do read those. I do check those out. I'm not related to Tony Lobianco, or at least not that I know of. But if that changes, if I send my DNA off to the Mormons or whoever else owns that these days, I'll be the first to let you know. Okay. And a reminder, folks, you can also drop a line at Tom at 24site.news. Make sure to sign up at 24site.news. Get the newsletter. Catch up on everything that's going on. If you're a longtime viewer, you know this already. We report the news over here. All right, we try to keep things normal, try to keep things sound, grounded, while everybody else is losing their mind, because it doesn't help to have your hair on fire constantly. And that's the ethos of, that's why I've been doing this for about 25 years now. That's why I keep doing it here. Make sure to support independent journalism. All right, guys. So before we get into Virginia, and I'll tell you that we have a lot to get to in Virginia. This is something, me as a campaign reporter, as a longtime politics reporter, I always lose track of time. You work a beat, you work a campaign, you cover the heck out of this stuff, and then you wake up and it's like election day already. And that's kind of where my head is at right now, because I looked up and I realized, oh my God, we're only like 4 weeks away from the elections in Virginia and New Jersey. Now, New Jersey's going to have to be a different show. All right. Can't do it on this one. That requires more reporting. That's why we're here. And a little bit more digging. I have been doing a lot of reporting on the Virginia races, though. And I'll tell you, there's some wild stuff coming up. All right. We're going to be having on Brandon Jarvis of Virginia Scope News. He's going to be joining us in a little bit. Before we get to that, though, all right, I want to talk about something really cool that's coming up here. We're going to have a little bit of news on this on Friday on this show. There is a new show starting on C-SPAN. Here we have Variety with the details. C-SPAN chief jumps to ceasefire after crossfire and bid to create news programs that unify, not divide, by Brian Steinberg. There's Sam Feist, president of C-SPAN, my old boss at CNN, one of the truly great newsmen out there. Top here, earlier in his career, Sam Feist ran a news program called Crossfire that tried to capture viewership by having liberals and conservatives bicker with one another. Now he hopes to achieve similar results with a similar program that drops the arguments and squabbles. The new offering is called Ceasefire and will debut Friday on C-SPAN, the public affairs cable network that has for nearly half a century provided viewers a fly-on-the-wall presence at major congressional hearings and other important policy discussions crucial to U.S. government. In an era when the only things that truly attract significant news audience seem to be our on-air conflict and partisan rants, Feist, who was named the organization's new CEO last year, thinks there is new business to be found in programming that avoids such stuff. Quote, clearly our politics has us divided, and we've sorted ourselves into these media echo chambers in many ways to red and blue news. I think that's terrible for the country, says Feist during a recent interview. C-SPAN is defying that to some extent. Ceasefire will each week feature Republicans and Democrats trying to find common ground, not necessarily getting their backs up about the hill upon which they wish to die on. The show is hosted by Dasha Burns of Politico, a younger moderator than some might expect, and will, in its first week, bring on former U.S. Vice President Mike Pence and former Chicago Mayor and White House Chief of Staff Rahm Emanuel. In separate conversation, Sean Spicer, former White House press secretary under President Trump, will hold forth with Faiz Shakir, a senior advisor to Senator Bernie Sanders. Guys, I would tell you that so coming up on Friday, I'm going to be having on. I'm very excited for this. I've been on C-SPAN a number of times, not least of which talking about Mike Pence, uh, other doings in political news. I'm super excited to have on the person who usually asks me to come on. She is the executive producer of C-Spire. Her name's Michelle Remillard. She has been at C-SPAN for a very long time. She's the brains behind this, helping to put together everything. All right. And I am so pumped. So Friday, we're going to be having Michelle on the show, and we're going to be asking all the deep questions. If you got questions, all right, and then Michelle will be with us live. So this is really cool. If you got questions, shoot them on over. We'll get them all queued up on Friday. I can't tell you how pumped I am for this. All right, this is gonna be really cool. Okay, guys. So what's that? Okay, what's happening down at Old Dominion? This is why we cover politics. This is why we come to this. You think you can't be surprised by anything these days, and God knows there is plenty to deal with. And we're not doing a hard news top at the top of today's show, because today we're going deep on one story that really matters. This is the Virginia elections, and I'll tell you that the way it looks right now is, with voting already underway, it looks like, I don't know, maybe somewhere 8% or so of what might be the actual turnout have already cast their ballots early. Now, that's a very big deal. Um, eh, it looks like the governor's race going the way of the Democrats, Abigail Spanberger. Lieutenant governor's race probably also going the way of the Democrats. All right, with uh, Hazmi versus Lieutenant Governor Republican candidate John Reed. Um, the Attorney General's race is something else. It is the one place, based on all the most recent polling that we have out of the Commonwealth of Virginia, where Republicans have a very good shot, or at least a decent shot, I should say, of holding the office. Now, the current Attorney General is a Republican named Jason Miyares. The Democratic candidate is a man named Jay Jones, a former delegate. I want to read, before we bring on our guest today, Brandon Jarvis, who's been reporting on this extensively. Let me read a story from the National Review. This thing rocked Virginia politics. Headline: Dem AG nominee Jay Jones fantasized about shooting the former Virginia GOP speaker. Quote, he receives both bullets. Byline: Audrey Fallberg. On August 8, 2022, a Republican state legislator received a disturbing string of early morning text messages from a former colleague, Jay Jones, this year's Democratic nominee for Virginia Attorney General. Jones, who at the time had recently resigned from the state house after a brief stint representing Norfolk, had strong feelings about the political class, was eulogizing the recently deceased former state legislator Joe Johnson Jr., a moderate Democrat with a long tenure in Virginia politics. Republican legislators like House Speaker Todd Gilbert had begun making public statements honoring Johnson's memory and political legacy, and some of those statements were making the rounds in legislative group chats. Around 8 a.m., Jones shared those feelings with his former state legislative colleague, Republican House Delegate Kerry Coyner. In a series of text messages obtained by the National Review, Jones derided Johnson's political centrism and scoffed at the glowing tributes that were being made in his honor by Republicans in the wake of his death. And here he acknowledges, Jay Jones acknowledges that he sent it to the wrong person. And he says, quote, in this text exchange, here we go. So here's the text exchange. This is the Democrat Jay Jones. 3 people, 2 bullets: Gilbert, Hitler, and Pol Pot. Gilbert gets 2 bullets to the head. Spoiler, put Gilbert in the crew with the 2 worst people you know, and he receives bullets every time. That's Jay Jones in this August 2022 text exchange. The Republican Kerry Coyner replies, Jay, please stop. Jones, LOL, okay, okay. Republican Kerry Coyner, it really bothers me when you talk about hurting people or wishing death on them. It isn't okay, no matter who they are. All right, guys. So now you're probably up to date on all of this. That's our nut graph, as we say. Here's the latest twist in this. And I should note that this has really caught the eye of the White House. It has been very interesting to see whether the White House and Trump and the administration would get into the Virginia race at all. This seems to have finally drawn them into the race. Now, whether, there's all kinds of behind the scenes machinations in this. This is politics. This is the biggest, most important game in town. But this scandal has drawn them into the race. It is now major national news. It has pierced the veil, as they say. You never know what's going to be the one that does it. This one certainly did it. Here's the most recent twist from my guest joining us here in a second. This is Virginia Scope News. Virginia Scope News by Brandon Jarvis. Headline, October 6th, is yesterday. Coyner alleges Jones told her in a 2020 phone call that a few police officers dying would stop them from killing other people. Do make sure to sign up to Brandon's newsletter here. I'm already signed up. I'm like a double subscribe. It's very good. I've been relying on Brandon throughout the election to understand what's happening here. Byline, Brandon Jarvis. Delegate Kerry Coyner, R. Chesterfield, sat down with Virginia Scope on Monday to discuss the controversy surrounding text messages sent to her in 2022 by Virginia's Democratic Attorney General nominee, Jay Jones. In the conversation with Virginia Scope, Coyner talked about what action she took when she received the text and why it took years for them to become public. She also discussed previous conversations with Jones, which she said that he told her in 2020 that if a few police officers died, then maybe they would stop killing people. Jones denied he said this. All right, guys, joining me now, the author of this, Brandon Jarvis, who, if you're a longtime 24-7 viewer, you know Brandon well.
Hey, Tom, it's good to see you.
Hey, man, how you doing?
I'm living. It's a busy time down here in Virginia, but we're getting through it.
The last time I saw you, man, you were sweating it out in a brick warehouse.
Yeah, my phone overheated during the Substack Live. It was so hot, and we were talking about Dominion Energy at the time, so it was spooky. Yeah, I'm in a
It
new
must
house now and have a bit of a better air conditioning system, and also it's just fall in Virginia, which is great.
Good man. Much deserved. Much better than having to, sweat it out at these campaign rallies.
Yeah.
So, okay, number one, okay, so Brandon Jarvis is the author of Virginia Scope. You got to check this out if you haven't already. Make sure to sign up. All right, guys. Brandon, what did Kerry Coyner tell you yesterday? I was really shocked when I read this.
So I talked to her. She wanted to talk really about the methodology or the way these texts got out 3 years later. She really wanted to hit home on the point that she sent them to the Speaker of the House at the time. The person the texts were about, Todd Gilbert, and they were about his family. So it was up to him to decide what to happen. And she said she didn't really hear anything else about the text for like 3 years. And then she got the call from the National Review asking her to confirm that the texts were hers and that it took place. And so she said she told the truth and confirmed it. She got some pushback, people saying obviously this was a political move to put this out right now, which, I mean, at the end of the day, you can't deny that it was. But she just wanted to be clear that she sent the text to the person that the texts were about. Her boss at the time, Speaker of the House, he runs the caucus, he ran the whole House chamber. So she really wanted to get the message out. And she sent up a follow-up today, an email out to her supporters saying, I sent these messages to Todd Gilbert when it happened. She told me she hasn't talked to Jay Jones since that text exchange. So it's been 3 years. And then I also was following up on some of the things that were in the text. If you read one of the texts he sent her, he says, "As I've told you this before," I'm not exactly quoting it, but he said, "As I've told you this before, people need to feel pain or emotion or be impacted by something for them to move on legislation." And I was like, what is he talking about when he said, "I've told you this before"? And she detailed a phone call that she had with him back in 2020. We had a special session here in Richmond to address COVID and also the racial reckoning that the country was going through. We have Monument Avenue. We're the capital of the Confederacy. It was intense moments here. And she said when he was trying to get her to vote with him on a bill that would remove qualified immunity protections from law enforcement officers, she was saying that's insane. She said she made the case that people's lives would be in risk, police officer lives would be at risk if they have to second guess every decision because they're worried about a lawsuit. And she said some police officers might die or get hurt. And he said, well, maybe a few of them need to be killed to get some movement on this legislation. And so that's where we were yesterday. Jones completely denies that it took place after having a lawyer call me before I published my story, and hinting at lawsuits. But I still published. It took him 4.5 hours to deny that it about 4 hours to deny that he didn't say it. And that's where we are today. Um, Republicans are still calling for him to withdraw. Democrats are not. But it's a complicated thing. If Democrats start calling on him to withdraw, there's no way to replace him on the ballot. Early voting began. There's no legal way to do that. So it's either call on Jay Jones to withdraw and give the election to Jason Miyares, and then Jason Miyares can just spend all his money helping Winsome Sears and John Reed, or just get through it and see what happens. So Democrats are struggling with this right now.
Man, that is astounding to me. I really one of the things that kind of strikes me about this is that I saw that Jay Jones's response to the text messages, and clearly, he says he sent them, but then tries to pivot away, and it does apologize, but also tries to pivot away, but with this standard spin, oh, not as bad as Republicans. All
Yeah.
right. Um,
I mean, his first message right after the review article went up didn't have an apology.
hmm.
It was something along those like, we all regret texts we've sent in the past, but he didn't apologize. And then everyone came out and was like, you have to apologize. The Speaker of the House, Don Scott, he said a lot of nice things about Todd Gilbert and was like, Jay needs to apologize and reflect and pray. Um, Everyone pushed for the apology, and the apology eventually came a few hours later. And then later that night, he went on a local TV station with Tyler Englander, and he apologized again. So the apologies came. There hasn't been much from the Jones campaign since then. They did deny on the record in my story yesterday, but there hasn't really been anything else. There's no statewide ticket events taking place. Spamberger, she's in debate prep all week. They have their debate later this week. So there wasn't any, it's not like she canceled events on him or anything, but it will be interesting to see if they, team up at events in the future, because Winsome Sears is trying everything she can to tie Spamberger to Jones. And Spamberger did condemn his comments right away. So did Ghazala Hashmi. I haven't seen a Democrat support his comments. But it is kind of like a fracture in the party right now. Some are saying he needs to stay in the race and have their support, and some are basically just washing their hands of it. It's really interesting to see that fracture.
What do you've been covering Virginia politics for a while now. And folks, if you don't already, do make sure to head on over to virginiascope.com. That's where Brandon writes. He's on Substack also. You can find him there. I'll link it in the newsletter today. Um, who is Jay Jones? Is he like I think to this, like there was that Daily Caller editorial that came out a little while ago, or an op-ed piece where it's like, oh, it's time. One of the guys wrote that's like, it's time to see blood in the streets. And some people, right, and this is all coming in the context of post Charlie Kirk, very heightened awareness nationally over political rhetoric that is used, not the least of which is from the White House itself. But then you also have a number of folks, I'd argue, are cooler heads saying, well, no, nobody's actually calling for blood in the streets. Like if you read it that way, then that's your problem. What's your sense of Jay Jones? Because you've been covering him for a while. Uh, did you get the impression that this was a sincere call for violence, that it might actually lead to violence?
No, I don't think he meant he actually would shoot Todd Gilbert or he wants her children to die. And I think most people know he didn't mean it. But people are also saying, yeah, sometimes we all say jokes and stuff behind the scenes, but we don't say them when they're that graphic. I don't not nothing that I know about Jay makes me think he actually wants to shoot Todd Gilbert or her children die. But the comments were jarring to a lot of people, and it's just the fallback and the backlash and everything. It's caused a whirlwind. And Jay's been in, like, he knew he was going to run for attorney general again. He ran in the 2021 primary. He was young. He was like 32. He overperformed against the two-term Democratic incumbent in the primary and performed well. Everyone thought he was the favorite going into this election, and he was. He went up against Shannon Taylor for the nomination, and it ended up being very close, and it became this battle, which we actually talked about the last time on the show when the power went out, between Dominion Energy, the largest public utility in Virginia, backing Jay's opponent in the primary. So there's a lot of people saying now we wish we could go back, or why didn't Shannon Taylor have this? But she's a Democrat, and this sounds like it was something that only Republicans had because he sent it to a Republican legislator about a Republican Speaker of the House. So there's a lot of the conversations are all over the place. It's crazy. I mean, people are comparing it to the Northam blackface scandal of 2019, and some people are saying this is bigger. I think with Northam back then, it made it bigger because it was during the legislative session. Everyone was in Richmond, and it was just every day TV cameras were on people in person. It's harder to get that right now, but it's crazy. It's sent the state into a whirlwind of conversation about Jay Jones.
Folks, if you're just joining us, we've got Brandon Jarvis here from Virginia Scope. He's been covering Virginia politics for a long time, has the latest scoop on the Jay Jones saga. A phone call that Republican delegate Kerry Coyner says occurred in 2020, where Jones allegedly said that police would need to die before any policy changes. Now, Jones has denied that. Brandon has all the details over at virginiascope.com. Before I hit our next question, I want to say a big thanks to our 24 Site News interns this year, who have been doing some just incredible reporting, research, and help understanding what's happening in Virginia. Now, you know me. I'm a Maryland guy, and I'm not going to say I dislike Virginia. I'm just going to say I'm allergic to crossing the Potomac. Okay. I can't even tell you why it's like that. It's like the same reason that people from Boston never go down to Providence, even though it's like right there,
Yeah. Well, don't feelings mutual if it makes you feel better. I don't want to come there either.
It's like it's like the river Styx, or it's like vampires in like moving water.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's that way. It just is. All
Yeah.
right. So a big thanks to we had two 24 Site News interns this year who did some incredible reporting. Number one, Kaylee Clausing. And Kaylee is so good. Kaylee it found you, Brandon, and it did some really great interviews. And Max Cassett, Max is now he is a native Virginian. I did not hold that against him in the hiring process. Actually, that might have been part of the reason we selected him. Max did some really excellent research, not least of which was on these energy battles down there, which are really fascinating, between Dominion and Clean Energy, Virginia. I wanted to ask you, Brandon, about does this change anything, right? Because at the end of the day, that's kind of the question that we're all asking. Some of us old heads will remember the George Allen race, where he referred to a Democratic tracker back when that was a novel thing back in 2006 as a, quote, macaca. And that was one thing which became viral early in the days of virality, and then sunk his race. But as you alluded to there just a second ago, I don't know that. I mean, is it possible for anything to pierce the veil in this media environment? I mean, what's your sense of the effect of this?
I think it will have an impact. There's going to be more split tickets. According to an analyst I talked to, this would be the type of thing that causes a split ticket. Then you have a Democratic operative in Virginia. He tweeted something this morning. He said people talking about there's no more split tickets don't understand that, like, a lot of times there's not a reason this big enough to give someone a reason to split ticket. And then I don't think you'll see a lot of Democrats say, "Oh, I'm not going to vote for Jay, so I'll vote for Jason." But I do think you'll see Democrats vote for Spamberger, Hashmi, and then just leave the Attorney General race blank. It's hard to imagine Democrats flipping to vote for Jason Miyares because he is very partisan. There's no doubt. I don't think Miyares is picking up votes. There could be some independents out there that are on the fence, but there's such a big difference between Jay and Jason that it's hard to imagine someone just drops all their ideology and goes to Jason. But I do think it's easier to imagine they don't vote in that race at all. It'll be interesting. I don't think in these headwinds, so Virginia never elects statewide officials that are the same party as in the White House. They did it once in 2013, and that's when Ken Cuccinelli was running for the Republican, or he was the Republican running, and Terry McAuliffe barely beat him. It's hard to imagine a Democrat losing with Trump in the White House to even a greater impact. But if it's going to happen, this is the ultimate test to see how far voters in Virginia are against Trump. And is that a big enough motivating factor to send them out for Jay? So it's yet to be seen. And there's people calling for him to drop out, but there's no, like I said, there's no Democrats doing it. And so it's just, we'll see. It depends on what else comes out. I'm not saying there is anything else to come out, but this is just seems, it started last week on October 1st, nonetheless, when the RTD, the Richmond Times-Dispatch, published a story about Jay going 116 miles an hour in a 75-mile-an-hour zone, not getting arrested, and doing 500 of his community service hours for his own political PAC. There's all these. He's had, I mean, October is, we're 7 days into October right now, and it has been, I imagine, some of the worst 7 days of Jay Jones's life. So we'll see if anything else comes out. I don't know of anything else that is coming. It's hard to imagine, but if the slow drip of news keeps dropping against Jay, it can't be good for him. And then we have to see how close Spamberger stays to him. Like, does she put distance, ensure she wins? She already has a huge lead in polls compared to Jay and Ghazala. So it's hard to, she has to walk that line. And it's complicated for all of them.
It makes me wonder, like, where are the political professionals in all this? Didn't anybody vet this guy before?
Well, like I said earlier, it's hard to know what text he sent in 2022 to a Republican legislator who sent it to one of the most tactful Republicans to ever be in Virginia, and Todd Gilbert. There's a good chance 4 people knew about these texts until a couple of weeks ago, or whenever Audrey said she started hearing about it. I had never heard about these texts, and I hear some of the craziest stuff out there that can't even be true. So, like, it doesn't, I wouldn't put it past Gilbert to keep this so close to the chest. I don't know that Gilbert did it. Gilbert could have told someone else, and Gilbert also forgot about it. Like, I can't imagine he wanted this out either. So I don't know the strategy of how it got to the press, but it was very tactful, and it was all on the Republican side. And it's hard to imagine any business doing opposition research would have them on the Democratic side.
Yeah, traditionally they would always say, when in the world of politics, you decide to sign up a candidate, or you want to work for a candidate. So, the first thing you do is, if that candidate is serious, do an oppo book on yourself. All right. Yeah. So that you know what you're getting into. It was interesting to me. I did not realize this before. So I guess this text exchange happened not long after he resigned from the House of Delegates, right?
Yeah, I think wasn't it August of 2022 he resigned earlier that year. He won election in 2021 back to the House of Delegates after he lost the AG primary earlier. And then he stepped down at the end of 2021. His wife was pregnant, and he said he was going to spend time with his family. Then the speeding incident and this texting incident happened in that next year. So yeah, he knew he was going to run for AG again. It's like in the story I published about him resigning, I read it this morning. in 2021. Like they left the door wide open for him to run for attorney general again this year, and everyone in Virginia knew he was running. He was the front runner for the nomination. So I don't know why those things happened when they did, but they are really hurting him now.
Yeah, it not for nothing. I mean, this is not the Trump White House. It's not the Trump DOJ. It's a normal AG, or at least seems to be a normal Attorney General's office, whatever that amounts to these days. That is the chief prosecutor for the state. It is a law enforcement position. All right, like I mean, this is it's like if you're going to enforce the law, prosecute the law, probably need to follow the law more, maybe more than other politicians.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because like if he still wins this election, it's going to be hard for him to do the job at this point. I mean, just to be blunt, like it's going to be hard for him to not demand, but have the respect of the people in the job that while he does it. So it's incredibly complicated, and there's not ways. I mean, I'm sure there's some way. Like if you ever watched The West Wing, like when Arnie Vinnick went on camera for 2 hours and just answered every question about nuclear plants. I'm not saying there's no ways for him to save himself. There is. I'm not a political strategist. I don't know how to do it. But right now it just looks rough, and the public sentiment is not behind him. Republicans will never forget it. Anything he tries to do, he'll be tagged. Like Ralph Northam tweets still, it's just, you look in the replies, it's pictures of KKK outfits in blackface. So his life is a lot harder if he wins also. I mean, honestly, he's in a rough spot.
And I started researching this show late last week, and before this story broke, I was thinking, we need to get to a number of crazy things, and here we are at getting towards the back end of the show, and only have time for the other crazy things in Virginia. Let me ask you this, because I had on last week Christine Matthews. And folks, if you're just joining us, we've got Brandon Jarvis here. He's the editor, founder, reporter for Virginia Scope. Find him on Substack at virginiascope.com. He's been covering Virginia politics for a while now, has an excellent story up today. It's an interview with Delegate Carrie Coyner, who is the recipient of the J. Jones text messages, now at the center of a major scandal down there. I was talking with Christine Matthews, longtime Republican pollster who lives down in Alexandria, and we were talking about the Virginia elections. And invariably, because this is where we are as a nation, we ended up talking about Nazi porn. What is there? So my question is, because as an outsider, you come to this, right? You always kind of wonder, is this the other, quote unquote, the other shoe to drop on Lieutenant Governor candidate John Reed, or is it a bunch of BS, a bunch of fluff? What is this?
I mean, that's a tough question. Is it the other shoe to drop? I would say it was the attempted other shoe to drop on his campaign. It just didn't really make a noise when it landed. It was published on a media website that's funded by American Bridge, which they do Democratic research against Republicans. And it basically is just like a refresh of the John Reed scandal from the spring about an alleged Tumblr that has the same username as him. He denies it's his. And what they found is on that Tumblr, he reposted an account that had a really bad word in it, a really bad racial word in it. It was like what? And the account posted videos that were very racist and white supremacist, but I don't even remember what he reposted, but that was it. It was just like the one repost added on to the Tumblr from before, and it just didn't really land, didn't get any traction. He didn't even really have to comment on it, because it's just kind of like a refresh of what we've already gone through. And unless there's some proof now to say that it is John Reed's Tumblr, it doesn't really hit. It came a few hours after the news broke about J. Jones is speeding, going 160 miles an hour. So it just got lost. And even if that hadn't happened, it would have been lost with this text story coming out. Yeah. So it's really nothing new, unless we can prove that it's John Reed's Tumblr, which we still can't do. I mean, him and Governor Youngkin made up. Him and Winsome
Mm.
kind of friendly. You know, they've done a few appearances, but you can tell as she's openly against gay marriage, and he's an openly gay man. She doesn't love to be with him, it appears like. I mean, there's more on camera of them two interacting, or of John Reed and Abigail Spanberger actually interacting, than there is of Winsome and John Reed. John Reed kind of crashed an early voting event for Abigail on
Oh.
the first day, and he kind of just walked up to her press conference, jumped in, and they had a really wholesome interaction where they talked about
Mm.
maybe getting coffee and shaking hands, and it was very wholesome. And this was not long after Charlie Kirk, and so it got a lot of
Mm.
attention just for being like a positive interaction between the two parties. But Winsome hasn't done anything really like that with them, and we'll see what happens in these finals. They have momentum now. They're trying to drag uh, Gonzala and Spanberger down with Jay Jones, and so far we don't know what's working. I mean, they're spending a lot of money trying to tie them all together on TV ads, so we'll see where that goes.
Why was Youngkin pushing so hard at the beginning of the year for John Reed to resign? Because again, we talked about this months ago, and
Yeah,
to me, it was strange because, like, the first time I heard about this, just being a relative outsider to it, it's like, oh, there's a gay porn Tumblr. Not the coffee mug, guys, the blog. All right, somebody
yeah,
asked me about that. It's like we didn't know the Nazi aspect of it, and as as Brandon noted here, allegedly, right? We don't know that. But why did Youngkin push for him to resign though? Because that's a really big change from the spring.
I guess he thought that the association of him. I can only speculate. I don't know, but I thought the associate of him having this account that repost pictures of naked guys. I guess he thought it would hurt him in the election. That's the best I can come up with for that, because it was that whole situation was weird. It probably wouldn't even been that big of a story if he hadn't have asked him to withdraw from the race. Like it's like how this Nazi porn thing didn't really pick up because like you can't prove it's him. He says it's not him. So, like, what can we really write about it? But the governor asking someone to step down, and then legal documents being sent back and forth, and naming reporters and telling operatives to save text with reporters, it got crazy. And who knows? I mean, if it would have happened right now, it could have been a lot different. But maybe at the end of the day, Youngkin helped them by
Hmm.
making that happen then instead of now. But you'll be hard pressed. Like, the people who are going to vote for John Reed, if they're not voting for him because of the Tumblr, then they weren't going to vote for him, no matter what. And so it's just, I don't, that's another big question of 2025 is why did Youngkin do it? But he did it and he made it the news. But at the end of the day, maybe it helps that he did it then and not now.
Yeah. Hard to divine what's what's in the minds of these great master politicians, even potential future presidential candidates like Glenn Youngkin.
Yeah.
They do have some chops and a lot of old hands around them too. Does Earl Sears, does she still have the Nikki Haley operation with
Yeah.
her?
They're still
Okay.
she had a campaign manager for a while who had no political experience at all, and it was during a rough time of the campaign. And Cold Spark, which is the Nikki Haley consultants, came in and put one of their people as her campaign manager. So it seemed a little smoother since then. She's had some tough interviews, like she went on NBC for Meet the Press, and it was combative. So I guess you got to give her credit for going on that interview. She should have known it was going to be combative, but I think she held her own in the environment. But she doesn't really doing much else press. It's picked up since the Jay Jones thing,
Yeah.
but she's kind of staying out of the main spotlight. She held a press conference the other night calling on Jay Jones to drop out of the race and blaming Democrats for being divisive, while also calling Democrats the enemy and saying they're devouring the country and state. So it's a bit hypocritical. but she didn't take any questions after the press conference. She just gave us like a 7-minute speech and then just walked away.
It's a monologue, not a press conference.
Yeah, it wasn't a press conference at all. It was just a publicized speech, and so she doesn't take many questions, and I we'll see how that works out for her at the ballot box, but it doesn't look good according to the polls.
And you got this, now the debates. Is this the only gubernatorial debate?
Yes, they're having one debate for governor, and they are having a debate for attorney general. So, I mean, as far as I know, it's still on in 2 weeks. I think it's next week, and so that'll be very interesting. That's here in Richmond if it happens, and that'll that'll be. It's hard to imagine Jason Mewes talking about anything other than this when he's talking. Like they're going to ask Jay a question about some topic, and Jason's just going to be like, "Well, why don't we just ask Jay about his text?" Or I have a text from Jay in 2022 on this topic. He wants to kill children. Like it's hard to imagine how that's going to go.
Friends, if you're late for either of those debates, try not to go over 116 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And I assume, of course, I assume you'll be there for both of those, right, Brandon?
I'm going to watch the governor's debate from the couch. It's easier to write. I don't have to drive as far.
Yeah.
And, but I'll be at the one in Richmond. I'm going to go to for attorney general if they let me.
Not, but I'll tell you, man, the AG's race being the big draw down in VA. That's one of the great October surprises in all this. All right, guys. Brandon, thanks for being here, man. Where can we find your work? Where can everybody sign up for Virginia Scope?
You go to virginiascope.com for my standalone website, and then I have a newsletter, and on any of the posts, you'll see the sign-up sheet at the top. It goes through Substack, and it's called the Virginia Political Newsletter. So pretty on the nose there with it. So yeah, I appreciate you having me on today, Tom.
Right. Thanks, brother. Always. Take care, baby. Well, we come back to you after both. After at least one debate, okay, potentially an AG debate as well. Let's see if that actually happens. That's incredible. Hey guys, before we get out of here, reminder, you can always sign up 24site.news. We've got great stuff like this coming up this week. Also, drop me a note at tom@24site.news. As I noted in yesterday's email, I'm starting a weekly thing here, which is I'm not sure what I'm going to call it yet. So I called it yesterday. I call it the memory hole. As a very clever, a too clever play on words, perhaps. Some people might also call it the nut graph. I also thought about that. You can actually vote on this. All right. So go to the website, go to 24site.news, vote on this. I'm going to put it at the top there. In the latest newsletter, you can vote on this right now. The audience, I'm with you guys. I'm feeling it, man. The nut graph. It's got the perfect double entendre for our moment, really. And if I put it as hey, Chat GPT, give me the nut graph of American politics for October 7th, 2025. I'm not sure what the hell it's going to show us. I might not even be able to publish it if it's too graphic. It's too nut graphic, as it were. So tomorrow on the show, we're going to be talking with Sharish Date, a longtime White House reporter for the Huffington Post. He has some insights for us into a war, or I should say a purported war, a war that the White House would like to happen. Let's see if it's actually a war. Let's see how much actually lives up to the talking points and the spin there. Thursday on the show, very excited for this, guys. I've got Ben Cohen, co-founder of Ben and Jerry's. We're talking ice cream and politics and Bernie Sanders. It's going to be a big interview. And of course, on Friday, we're having a great week here. We're going to have on the executive producer of the new C-SPAN show, Michelle Remillard. All right, so she is the EP for Ceasefire, which debuts Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern on C-SPAN. All right, this is a really cool new program. You guys know, if you're big fans of 24 Site News, you've seen me on C-SPAN. You know I'm a super huge fan of C-SPAN. We call it, those of us reporters, journalists, we call it a national treasure for a reason. And under the leadership of Sam Feist, it's becoming even more so. It's growing into the new era of media. I'm just really pumped to see C-SPAN growing, expanding. They got these big new contracts with Hulu and YouTube, and this great new show moderated by Dasha Burns landing on Friday. So we're going to get a little behind the scenes look at that. Before we get out of here, I want to say a big thanks to you guys for all your support. Okay. I do this with you. I'm an independent journalist. I can't do it without you. If you got $5 a month, head on over to 24site.news, get a paid subscription to make sure we can keep doing this here. I don't answer to Brendan Carr. All right. I don't answer to Nexstar or Skydance or Larry Ellison or any of these other people who are putting the thumb on news coverage right now, trying to say what we can and can't say. I report for you guys, and I need your support to do that. I want to say a big thanks to our sponsors for the show. First off, Beth Solomon. Beth Solomon, longtime speechwriter for former Senator Sam Nunn, then moved up to the C-suite, held a number of jobs. She wrote a book called From Fired to Fabulous about a year ago. I was at the book launch, read it, had her on the pod about a year ago now. And I don't think either of us could have foreseen at that time how relevant this book would be. It's a hand guide really for if you've been doged. And if you're living in Virginia, I'm guessing you either know about this personally or you have people that got doged. All right. From Fired to Fabulous by Beth Solomon. It's her stories and her experiences as somebody, really at the upper echelons. You still get fired. It happens. It happens to the best of us. What do you do next? How do you dust yourself off? How do you get back up? Either get back into your career track, start something new, like I've been doing here for almost 2 years now, 24site.news. What do you do? How do you do it? It's great. It's breezy. It's brisk. It's very empathetic to where you are if this is something happening to you. So check that out. Beth Solomon, From Fired to Fabulous. Also want to say a big thanks to Manoj Paulson over at projectmanagemymove.com. Manoj, an old friend, he's supporting the program. We were talking about this a couple months ago. He started this. So, he's another independent business owner. And Manoj started this projectmanagemymove.com. The first thing I told Manoj was like, I don't know what that means. Sorry, guys. I'm a reporter. I'm very blunt. All right. I just say things as they are. All right. I told Manoj, I was like, I'm sorry. I don't know what that is. What he told me next was actually I was astounded by this. Have you guys ever heard of a distress sale? Yeah, if you're not in real estate, you might not know about this. A distress sale is when you got death in the family or a divorce or something else really bad happens. All right. And look, it happens to all of us. You got to deal with it. Okay. You don't have the time to deal with selling the house. So sometimes people will go to the realtor and the realtor will put it up there. If you sell it too fast, it's not getting the money it's worth. You're not getting the money you should be getting from it. Manoj coordinates the contractors, project manage my move. He is the project manager for your move. And he coordinates contractors to bring them in, make sure the place looks nice and pretty, so that when you do put it up on the market, you get tens of thousands of dollars more than what you might have gotten otherwise. All right. So head on over to projectmanagemymove.com. Tell them I sent you. Tell them how much you love independent journalism and how much more you want to get for your house, and he'll make it happen. All right, guys. I'm out of here. I'll see you again tomorrow at noon. Make sure to catch the encore on Political Voices Network at 8 p.m. It is a pleasure to be here with you. It is a privilege to be here with you, but it is also our First Amendment right. And I'm so honored to exercise that basic human right with you every single day. See you guys.